welcome to Reveal the Legend Within Story Festival, and my world-class speaker today is a woman that I only met this year. In these disruptive times of chaos, she is one of the gifts that came into my life, and the story that I'm going to ask her to share with us today is incredible, but even more important is the learning that Terilee passes on is something that every single one of us could hear. So without further ado, I'd really like to welcome Terilee Harrison. Good morning. How are you?
Oh, Melanie, it's just my delight and honor to be here. And you were certainly one of my gifts of the year as well. So thank you so much for having me.
So Terilee, you're the author of a book called The Shameless Life. Well, I know the story, but I'd love to hear it from you in full because I've never really heard the full story from you. But it is one of the most extraordinary, and the learning that you took from it, that you put into that book, is exceptional. So tell me, what is the story behind A Shameless Life?
You know, Melanie, this is my story of my life, and it's something that for many years I could have never imagined writing, coming out, sharing with people so openly. And it's funny how now I happen to have it sitting here, but it's funny how now that something that felt so ugly for so long suddenly like can be packaged in a beautiful package. And this is not about selling books today, but it's just about how our stories really are beautiful. They really are in so many ways. And part of it comes from our experiences and the learnings that we take. So my story will go back to my childhood. I sit before you, 53 years old, and from the time I was little, I just wasn't feeling well. I had was seeing specialists, and by the time I was 14, I had three major surgeries. And there was one of them that caused most of my shame, if you will, once we head into that title. And it was that in the way I was made, that I was born with an underdeveloped reproductive tract. Now, what does that mean in plain English? Well, Melanie, what it means is, in my case, I was born without a lower vagina.
It's not even, most people wouldn't even know that was possible, let
Right,
alone what do we do with that. But
right.
and how does a girl who gets born like that ever know it's not right?
Mm. It's so interesting. Someone said to me recently, and talking about getting real, someone said to me recently, "Well, how did your parents not know?" And of all the questions I've had over the years, it was it was because everything on the outside, not that y'all need to know, but like everything on the outside, like you can't tell what's happening on the inside physically with this issue, right? Um, so it's interesting. I was like, "Oh my gosh, why are you asking me that?" But what do you do? And the way that it was presented to me was that all these issues that I had, that I was a twin and the egg hadn't split. And when I was back when I was 4 years old, doctors did exploratory surgery, and they'd come out to the waiting room for my parents and told them, "Your daughter looks like a museum inside."
And those are the words that we receive.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. When you know that part, I took on when I was 12 and having the surgery, and I really didn't get all that was happening around me, right? But what I took on was that I was the only one in the world that had this, and I was different from all other girls.
And that you
And
are never going to be like other girls. I'm not saying that's not true. I'm not saying that's true,
the
but
good,
at 12 it felt
right?
like I will always
Yes,
be
yes,
other,
or
separate.
just carrying it because you knew, like it was. This was corrected at 12, right? This was
Right.
corrected, but yet, yeah, there was nothing to do to change. There's nothing to do to change what you're carrying, right?
And we're
Yeah.
talking about, as you mentioned, you're 50 something years old. So we're talking about a long time ago, and there wasn't the internet, and there wasn't any of this conversation about gender around that made this even remotely possible to talk about.
Correct. I think that's one of the things is like I didn't realize it, but how alone I felt.
How true is that for so many people with their own
Mm-hmm.
suffering? They absolutely feel alone in it. And I presume your parents were confused and didn't talk about it.
Mm. My parents are the most wonderful, amazing, loving people, supportive people, and they did the best they could with a really hard situation. And so, yes, that we just did not talk about it. In fact, I don't remember a day when they sat me down and we had like a family meeting and they said we're not going to talk about it, but yet I strongly felt it was very implied. And like I have to tell you that my best friend at the time, my best friend from all of elementary school, she didn't know what my surgery was. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like we did not. You had to be like so close to me. Like maybe in my over the years, maybe five people like would I share. Like I just didn't share it. It was so like shameful, so shameful. Like I just carried that darkness, like just the not good enough. Hmm.
So when did that change? When did you, I mean, when did you go from that to being able to write a book about it?
That's pretty crazy, right? That's pretty crazy. So I think part of if I could throw this in, okay, because my shame, what it did was it showed up. It starts spilling out in places. So I literally felt unlovable. And so how does that come out in your life as you're growing up? Well, a couple things. I started looking for love in all the wrong places. Another
Okay.
place it showed up was I wanted to be perfect. And on the outside, growing up, and this isn't to sound like not full of humility, like I feel like I'm an attractive looking woman on the outside, and I was like a cute young girl, beautiful young girl growing up, and my thing was like people would look at me and they would never know. They would never know, right? So I'm grateful in the scheme of shame and the shame people carry that for the most part, nobody looking at me would have any clue. They wouldn't have any clue. But my behavior bled out in a lot of places. And so I created a lot of havoc in my life because of my feeling not good enough and unlovable.
And that's the piece that I think so many people will, that's the learning, isn't it? Is that it does spill out and we create the havoc, not out of malice or incompetence, just out of hiding, being perfect, trying to like not have any cracks, things like
Yes,
that.
but yet we're like a vase that's been dropped and glued together. There's still the cracks, no matter what. There are still those cracks, and we must deal with those things. And Melanie, I carried this with me for 30 years. It was 30 years in a conversation with a coach that began to change everything for me.
Wow. So tell me about that time.
Mm. So 12 years ago now, so I was like 41, 42. I was sitting with a business coach. Coaching is so amazing, as you all know. And the conversation it's a cute one, but poignant. He was asking me, what do you want to talk about today? And I said, well, I'm just organized. I do a lot of networking, and I will lose contacts of people, their business cards. Like I come home with all my things and I know I'm losing money. I said, but then as we got to talk about my disorganization and I began describing it to him, I said, well, we can't park in my garage. My garage isn't organized and my house looks clean, but every drawer that you open, every closet, it's a mess. And he looked at me across the table. We were at a Starbucks, and he said, tell me about your childhood. And I thought, he thinks I was abused or something. And I was like, no, no. I said, no, I had a great childhood. And I said, but I was sick a lot. Now, Melanie, you can stuff a lot of things for a lot of years and not remember it, right? I didn't wake up every day for 30 years and let my feet hit the floor and go, wow, I feel so bad about myself. you,
And
you,
isn't
you
that
don't
true
you
for
don't think
most
it,
of
but
us?
yet
Yeah.
but yet it's there the whole time. And it was the internet. It was the internet. I went home that night and I got to thinking, and I didn't know what to type in. And I chose to type in absence of vagina, and no one was more surprised than I was when a bunch of stuff came up.
No, not alone.
Not alone. not alone. And there was more. There was more. So what I have is a condition that 1 in 5,000 women have, and I believe for the most part, many don't talk about it. And it's that all the things I talked about. So like my multiple surgeries I had when I was little. So the women are born with the underdeveloped reproductive tracts. They can have like kidney abnormalities. That was one of mine. I have a double kidney on the right side. They can have skeletal issues, like I have scoliosis. I have rods in my back, and but the most devastating part of this syndrome is really the emotional part that
Mm.
comes with it, because for most everyone else, I liken it to like the autism spectrum. Like there's a spectrum. There's a spectrum with the deformities, if you will, and with the underdevelopedness that happens. And most of the women that have this, it isn't that they are just born without a vagina. They actually have, they were born without a uterus as well. Like there's just no reproductive tract basically there.
I mean, that's absolutely fascinating. But what I'm hearing is that surgery could fix most or all of the physical stuff. But
For me,
what do you do to fix or even admit or start healing the emotional stuff? Because in all fairness, you have a daughter and you have
yeah,
a
I do.
beautiful full life. And so
I
how do
do.
we get from there to where you are today?
The interesting part for me, and that's part of my healing, that's part of my healing was because I believe a lot of the junk we hang on to are the lies we believe, and we just don't know that they're lies. So my lie of I'm not good enough, it's not okay to be me, and I felt like I was junk, right? I was not like a normal woman. I wasn't okay. I wasn't okay. I began to realize that most of the women who have my condition are they're born without a uterus, so they don't find out when they're 12 and they need to start their period and they need surgery to have it, right? They find out when they're 15, 16, 17 and haven't started menstruating yet, and they go to the doctor, and then they find out they're God bless them, they find out right then and there that they're not going to be able to potentially have their own biological children at a young age, at a very young age. And for me, that was part of my beginning to like sledge through all the junk I was carrying, because it was like, no, it's not that I'm junk. I'm a miracle. And I had no idea.
Oh my God, I love that reframing. So often, a simple reframe can change our perspective on life. I've seen more people torn down by their mind than by their life.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that reframe, I am not junk, I'm a miracle. It's just given
Yes.
me chills. It's amazing. And that's the start. That just changed the trajectory of the thought and everything.
And it changed everything. So as I began, I realized in that moment, and depending on what all your beliefs are, so I hope everyone can ride this out with me. But I realized that back when I was being formed, that for me, this is what I believed, that God, if God or whoever you believe, but in my case, if he makes everything, that when I was being made, it was like give her just enough uterus like to have those kids. Because my uterus doesn't look right. It doesn't look right on the outside. It's underdeveloped also. But was able to conceive and birth 2 children. And in the scheme of things, with all this going on, I mean, that is pretty darn special. And I felt quite a gift. I felt quite a gift. So in going from not loving myself, not thinking that people could love me, it's like no, none of that's true. None of that's true after all.
And it takes so many of us so long to learn that none of that is true.
And sometimes we never find out.
And it's that thing of like, we know we're worthy, but only by learning how that we're unworthy.
Yes.
It's not natural to know we're worthy. We arrive, and then the first messages we get are we are other, we are not enough, we are unworthy. And that's what teaches us the value of worth or enough. And your story is amazing. And what you and I resonate on so much is the value of story. You are a great teacher of how valuable stories are and how we position them to support what it is we're doing in the world.
Yes.
But by writing the book, Did it change? Did that change your life in any way? Were you
Mm,
made in writing the book by
mm.
coming out, as it were?
Writing the book has been very important, and beginning to be more open about who I am and what I've been through. And truly, it just, even the part of the most painful confessions are of the things I've done, the choices I made, the things I've done, that's part of what I carry, but it is part of the story. It is part of what makes my life now today even more beautiful, is that we can move past the things, and we can we can move past the things, and we can basically live a redemptive life, right? We can move on and find success, feel love, have better relationships than we ever thought were possible. But I think what changed for me, I have a favorite. I don't quote myself all the time, but one of my favorite things to say is, it's one of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself is to allow others to love you for who you really are.
Wow, that's just beautiful. If I were to ask you right now, what's the one takeaway you want people to take away from this conversation, that would pretty much sum it up, wouldn't it?
I think it is. I think it is. Yes. I would love people to know that they're not alone. We all have a story. I think in some ways we all carry some shame. It just may be different. Shame actually comes from three places, Melanie. It can be from the things that people have done to us. You saw my reaction when the coach said, when I said, oh, he thinks I was abused or something. But the fact is, in my study of shame, 30% of the humans walking the planet have been abused. And it's life altering. It's life altering. And shame can also come from the things we've done. So we all have things that we're not proud of. And some of us, it's how we take those on. Can we forgive ourselves? Can we move past it? Can we change that behavior? And then lastly, it comes from awkward feelings about how we're made. And it might not be that you feel different than all other girls, but sometimes that can be being too short, tall, too short, too fat, too thin. Your skin is too light, too dark. And it's not that some of us may not understand, well, that's no big deal, but it's about the shame we carry. It's all personal. It's all personal. It's what's important to you and how we take it on. And did you know, Melanie, I don't know if you know, in the concept of this, that truly addictions stem from our shame.
That is, I'm just going to feel that one. And fascinating, we don't always treat shame when we're treating addiction, and certainly not by ourselves.
No. This takes a village, I believe. It takes time and a village, and it's a journey. Recently, I was doing some more work, and someone said, it's this. And I went, okay. I literally went in the table, and I said, that again, I've dealt with this. But it's a journey.
Yes, and we're never really done. But when we have those big reframes, we do set a completely different trajectory for ourselves.
Yes, we do.
And then everything that we do after that is built on that learning, and there is in the right direction. And we can course correct because now we know what both sides feel like.
That's right.
And the thing that I admire so much about you is this honesty that at 50 you're literally together, and it can take that because so many people feel we should be done by 30, or at 20 we're just starting on our life and we've learned everything we need to know, so how can it possibly be difficult? But for you to have written that book, which I know we're not promoting, but I do think people should buy, and it's available on all good internet booksellers. At the moment we can't go to them in the shop, but what you do in the world today is related to this. You head up a huge networking organization, but the way you lead it is based on this. What is it that you see that you bring to your work now?
I think it's stunning when you meet business owners and we're all walking this path of wanting to grow and do well. And I realize I have my story and they all have theirs. And I bring authenticity and vulnerability to it as a leader. And I believe, as you do, I'm sure, that being the leader is the speed of the leader is the speed of the pack. And if I'm all hidden behind a mask like I was for so long versus who I am now and how I can lead from my heart, even like the events I host, who I pick to be speakers, what I ask them to speak about, all these things are designed because I want to empower our people to be able to be real in their life as well. It's our stories that empower people to love us more. They'll find us more credible. They will find us more courageous. People will want to do business with us, and people want to be with you when you're real. I think that the very thing we fear is the thing that can bring us back to all the success in the world is just being ourselves, being our unique self.
Terilee, I'm part of that network and I can attest to that being completely true. Your generosity and your authenticity and your ability to see us for who we are, where we are, and be enough, be okay, is incredibly empowering. I see it everywhere that you go. Now, would you do me the great honour of quoting yourself again so that I can set out, this is the takeaway that I want everyone to take from our conversation, is Terilee's own quote in her own words.
I sure can. One of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself is to allow others to love you for who you really are.
Thank you. That is absolutely beautiful. I'm so honoured to have your time. I can't wait to have you speak at the festival. I can't wait for everybody else to come and to really dive deep into your story and the learning from it. It's so powerful. I really appreciate you and you speaking at the festival. Thank you again for your time today, Terilee.
Melanie, it's my honor. I'm so delighted. Thank you for having me.